In a fight with my mom. 50 bands in a day. 20 more, but I'm straight.
Screw it. I need to know. I seriously need to know how Fantano gave Kendrick a 9 out of 10 on that one. I need to know. I need to know what he liked about that album. I just need to know. We're reacting. I'm reacting to his review. I'm reacting to his GNX review. I just need to know what he enjoyed about this, because usually Fantano, like, there's no like hiding the fact that Fantano is a Kendrick Lamar fan, and he really does like his music. There's no denying that. But a 9 out of 10 on this album, I don't see how. I don't see how he. I don't understand. I have to watch this. 30 goddamn minutes. Holy shit. Okay. After I react to this, I'm going over to my great aunt's house to visit them real quick for Thanksgiving. But I have to see this.
Hi everyone, Big Thinny Thrill Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. It's time for a review of the new Kendrick Lamar album, GNX. Kendrick Lamar, Duckworth, Compton rapper, generational talent, someone considered by many to be one of the best songwriters of his generation. He has long been both a rapper's rapper and somebody whose creative appeal transcends the genre itself, as his music and name tends to command respect with music fans of all stripes. That's not to say he and his work aren't ever polarizing or controversial. After all, this 6th album of his is driving a lot of discourse right now, but way before this record came out, Kendrick was already having a pretty hot 20.
I'm not even gonna lie, I really do like the fact that Fantano has started doing this with his reviews, where I said this when I was watching the Chromacopia review, where he kind of, if you're not up to date maybe with this artist, like, and you're kind of just the first time ever checking out his videos because you maybe really enjoyed that record, or maybe that's the first time you're seeing one of his reviews to that artist you really like. It gives you a little background information and kind of relevant information to that artist at the time that he records these reviews. So I really do appreciate that little bit of effort that he spent at the beginning of his videos talking about.
2024. As this past spring, he came out the victor in a multi-track beef with commercial Canadian hip-hop titan Drake. If there is such a thing in the modern rap landscape as a multinational bank that's too big to fail, that's Drake. Because recently he's been releasing a lot of music that many consider to not really hold a candle to his more classic works, and yet he continues to hold strong as the most streamed modern rap artist today. And his unwavering grip on the industry these days is something he seems to be very well aware of, and he operates as such. Whether he's putting little effort into an uninspired collaboration or song, or sending out not-so-subliminal shots on a group of bars, or making cavalier comments in hermetically sealed interviews and promotional interactions where he is not likely to see much pushback. And for a while it kind of seemed like this was just the state of things in...
I'm not gonna lie, that was crazy that Drake decided to hop on stream with XQC. That was not something I was not expecting to see this year, but, you know. And then that's where Drake decides to start firing more comments at Kendrick. Like, bro is just... Drake is just so, like... I'm not gonna lie, Drake is just going out very sad after that beef. Everything he's doing is just very sad, and just, it's like kicking a lost puppy.
Popular music and popular hip-hop today that they weren't really going to change or shift in any direction, see a shake-up in any way, until the song Like That hit the internet the song off of the Metro Boomin and Future project We Don't Trust You that dropped recently, which featured Kendrick Lamar. And yes, on that track, Kendrick fired off a few shots.
That was what, back in
that,
March, right?
Basically
or
got
April?
this domino effect going. No Big Three, just Big Me. J. Cole responds, he apologizes. Drake jumps in, he's responding to a bunch of people. Kendrick's responding to Drake. Tracks are going back and forth. Drake's getting called on a song that managed to become one of the biggest hits.
Always
of the year.
effects.
Talk about a series of events. But while Drake has been mostly in reset mode at this point, kind of waiting for the moment where he can kind of re-enter things and act like everything is normal, Kendrick has been doing victory lap after victory lap after victory lap with music videos and the pop-out show and the announcement he's going to play the next Super Bowl. And now he has a whole new album out that he dropped with no warning whatsoever outside of a...
I ain't gonna lie. Every move Drake was making, Kendrick was right there to, one-up him in like the biggest way possible. So Kendrick was playing his cards right until releasing this album.
1 minute video and music snippet teaser. Mind you, the music featured in that teaser, none of that music is actually on this record. So who knows if Kendrick has other stuff.
That is true. I didn't even recognize that.
Still, the man does like to tease. But yeah, the title of this record is GNX, which is short for Grand National Experimental, a Buick model that was produced in the late 80s that is also presumably featured on the front cover of this album and is mentioned in the lyrics of this record at least a few times. Okay, let me start to really dig into this album because it's a bit
okay. So now he's getting into
context-wise. Like, what's the sound? What's the narrative? What's the direction on this project? I'll put it this way: there's been a lot of conversation in recent months about Kendrick Lamar kind of being the rapper of the year in 2024. The only real output people would have to base that accolade off of are the diss tracks he wrote against Drake. And there are some people who, for whatever reason, believe that you can't be rapper of the year off a few diss tracks. How are you rapper of the year and you haven't had a project out? Well, here is the project. And in some ways,
we'll say, I haven't seen that discourse, but that's very interesting that he brings that up. What can everyone who decided, especially rappers, to drop this year was because Kendrick and Drake's beef put rap under the spotlight of music. Like, it was a very slow start to the year as far as the hip-hop scene until that feud went off back in April or May. Like, y'all notice if someone didn't drop in those first few months of the year, they were dropping in the next few following the beef, and like we're still seeing a bunch of people dropping now. Like, now that now that we're like almost done with the year, there are still some big names getting ready to drop some records. Like, look, Snoop Dogg is literally about to drop his long-awaited sequel to Doggy Style in December. Like, Kendrick can be called rapper of the year because of what him and Drake did for hip-hop. They got hip-hop like to be probably the biggest it's been in a long time with their feud. Like, and with Kendrick just coming out to be the victor of that beef, it makes sense why maybe some would say he's rapper of the year this year. It would make sense. Now, does he have the best album of the year? Absolutely not. But to say Kendrick hasn't had a solid 2024 with all those Drake disses and, coming out on top during that whole thing, is it wrong to call him a rapper of the year? I don't think so. I surely don't. Especially considering that, like I said, that beef is so much for the hip-hop culture and put hip-hop under a spotlight to where it affected everybody. And everybody was dropping. Everybody was doing good numbers this year.
with this record, it feels like Kendrick has kind of like bottled up the aesthetics, the vibes, the energy, the in-your-face attitude, the callbacks to classic West Coast shades of hip-hop, the lyricism, also the fact that he is taking no prisoners and responding to and addressing those in rap music and beyond who just refuse to show him respect and give him the accolades that he deserves. He's just bottling all
That
of
was
that
a constant
up
theme
into an
throughout
album.
that
A
album.
very short, punchy, to the point, merciless record that has some very thoughtful and personal pockets held within it as well. In fact, I would actually say this is one of Kendrick's best sequenced albums to date. It's a very smooth, versatile, entertaining listen with many different tracks that scratch many different itches. And let's start digging into the progression of the album, starting with the opener, Whacked Out Murals. In true Kendrick Lamar fashion, the first few seconds of this track are colored by some very odd and eerie vocal harmonies, and a guest vocalist who's brought in to set some sort of narrative tone.
I wish that guest vocalist honestly had a bigger part. Like, I remember her vocals at the beginning of that first track, and they were slightly sprinkled throughout the album, but I wish she honestly had a bigger track throughout the entire record. Or a
In this
bigger
case,
contribution.
it's Dara Barrera, a Mexican mariachi singer, who turns up now and also in the middle and toward the end of the album. And to put it
I do
in
remember
the nerdiest terms possible,
hearing her towards
this
the
is a
end.
very Lamarian device at this point. Like, we know on his albums, Kendrick likes to commit to bits, create threads that kind of run throughout multiple tracks, as well as plant Easter eggs and create thoughtful references. Now, some fans read into this stuff in a way that's just downright conspiratorial, but considering he's done stuff along these lines in the past, I don't think it's out of pocket to presume that all of these appearances are connected somehow. And if you assemble all of Barrera's lines throughout the record in English, it translates roughly to something like, I feel your presence here last night, and we start to cry. That reflects in your gaze. The night, you and me, seated, Anita and you. This could be a nod to singer Anita Baker, who is also referenced on the record in Kendrick's lyrics, because this album isn't just simply about encapsulating the
Isn't that the chick who was on Sao Paulo with The Weeknd?
Confrontational vibe of the Drake disses, as well as the Watch the Party Die single. Here is the Air Force Ones on the single cover art. No, this record isn't just about that, because like most Kendrick Lamar projects, this album is also a continuation of his relationship with his craft and art at large, as there are numerous meditations across this record that are essentially about the power of music, the importance of not misusing your influence, your abilities, which, if you're to go by the lyrics on this record, are something that Kendrick still sees very much as a godly gift. One he is still figuring out how to wield authentically and in a way that manifests the greatest net positive benefit, which makes for a compelling narrative, but still a surprising one to see crop up again on an album, especially after seeing Kendrick wrestle his savior complex into submission a few years ago on his Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers album. You heard it. This man very clearly on that record came to the conclusion that his efforts on this front were mostly futile, and that it was more important to save himself and work toward the health and safety of his family, of his children, of his loved ones, and break these cycles of distrust and dishonesty and abuse in his own life. And this is kind of funny.
I'm not gonna lie. Mr. Morale could have been the perfect record to send off Kendrick's career. Would it have been disappointing if Mr. Morale was the final Kendrick Lamar album? Absolutely. But I feel like with the way Section 80 begins and the way Mr. Morale ends, that could have been the perfect career for Kendrick Lamar. And now that an album like this, which feels so filler, and definitely would be, easily one of the weakest in the album in an artist's discography, if it was anyone else, I don't know. Now I feel like Mr. Morale kind of loses, I hate to say it, but kind of loses some points now that, it's not over for Kendrick. Like, honestly, I thought Kendrick was serious about giving it up. I thought Kendrick was very serious about quitting hip hop and quitting making music with Mr. Morale, especially with the closers such as Savior and Mirror. So would it have been disappointing? Yes. But honestly, I wouldn't have been mad at it. Because at least he ended his career with a very personal and seriously great record. And now we have
Especially
this.
in the wake of this recent beef with Drake, because Kendrick's biggest detractors are constantly on the search for something about him that is inconsistent or hypocritical. And
That's
they
fair.
can't really seem to land on the character flaw that is staring them right in the face, or at least they can't make it work against him in a measurable way. But still to this day, Kendrick is infatuated with the idea of his talents and the power of music having the capacity to and while part of me wants to buy into that because undeniably the talent is there, plus I as a music fan myself have experienced and also witnessed the powerful changes that music can bring. Still though, Kendrick's motivations at times do read as kind of self-serving, even if he does on this very album call his own motivations into question from time to time. Because I mean, one track on this record is pretty much 3 straight minutes of him telling us that he deserves pretty much every accolade and opportunity and word of praise that we could conjure for him. And sure, while lots of
Best man at the Garden, wasn't it?
Have told us in one way or another that they're the best, they're the greatest, this Man at the Garden track is a goddamn treatise on why Kendrick Lamar deserves that #1 spot. And it's musically designed to whip you up into an emotional frenzy at the very end that'll have you being like, oh yes, Kendrick, you deserve everything. Which, while sure, that read of the song is a bit reductive, we can't pretend like Kendrick's self-interest on this song doesn't factor at all, and it is worth asking, am I being initiated into a cult here? But wasn't I explaining the intro? Whacked out murals? I've digressed here. I'm going to digress further and sort of try to sum up this record by saying it's a loosely conceptualized flurry of ignorant West Coast bangers, melodic jams, as well as heady writing exercises that remind me of
melodic
the
jams
genetic
were
makeup of...
I'm not gonna lie. Kendrick cannot make melodic songs. Like if I don't know. Melodic wise, I don't think Kendrick can do. That's like the one style I don't think Kendrick has been able to master yet. Like the closest I think he's got to it was like something like Love from Damn. But even then a lot of people don't fuck with that song. So man, I definitely did not fuck with the melodic performances on this record. And like I mentioned during my reaction, Purple Hearts is the only track I really don't fuck with off of Mr. Morale, and that is one of the heaviest melodic performances Kendrick has ever delivered.
I've digressed here. I'm going to digress further and sort of try to sum up this record by saying it's a loosely conceptualized flurry of ignorant West Coast bangers, melodic jams, as well as heady writing exercises that remind me of the genetic makeup of Damn, Kendrick Lamar's huge, commercially successful 2017 record, which, for me personally,
there was not a single track I felt like Damn. There was not a single track that I felt like matched anything that Damn did. Like the only way I could see this album being compared to Damn is like the production wise and being like hard at moments, but like Damn was a hard produced album throughout the entire thing. Where like the production definitely took a dip in quality, especially after Hard Part 6.
Really ranks as the weakest of his big studio album releases, but I think GNX succeeds where Damn faltered. The bops on this thing hit hard, and not only do they hit hard, but
no. So that's how he came to this. That's how he came to this conclusion. He thinks GNX is a better product of what Damn should have been. And I know he's in the minority of not liking Damn. Oh no.
They are just downright ridiculously visceral and in your face, and they are aggressive, they are mean, they're stupidly smart and endlessly charismatic too, and the smoother, more low-key cuts on the record are equally addictive. Finally, these more lyrically dense cuts on the record.
No. What, my take is wild or Fantano's take? My take or Fantano's about Damn? Oh, nah. Nah. Listen, I'll always respect Fantano, but I never understood. Okay, making sure. I never understood. Like, I could get it. I agree. Damn is very mainstream, and I can understand why that's the reason people don't like it, and also one of the reasons why Humbled is kind of an annoying song to people. But I was never like I grew up I didn't grow up listening to Damn or Humble, but I remember it being played, and I remember not getting tired of it. But like I got to enjoy Damn in 2019 as a freshman, as a high school freshman student, and I loved it. I love the energetic performances. I love the production. I love the lyricism. Um, and really, there's not many tracks I would say are bad on that record. Is it his best album? No. It's not his weakest though either. So
and in your face, and they are aggressive, they are mean, they're stupidly smart and endlessly charismatic too, and the smoother, more low-key cuts on the record are equally addictive. Finally, these more lyrically dense cuts on the records, while they are more compartmentalized than they might be on a more narrative or grand conceptual record from Kendrick, they still involve some of the best storytelling of his career so far. So again, whacked out mural.
I don't know about that either. Some of the best storytelling. The only storytelling track I would say that measures up to some of his best is Hard Part 6. But even saying that, I don't think Hard Part 6 measures up to like Sing About Me, How Much a Dollar Costs, Duckworth. I don't think even that track, which I say is probably the best track on this new album, I don't think that even holds a candle to any of those tracks I just name dropped.
Girls intro track, which is really this slow burning cinematic start to the album. Kendrick's flows are steady, and he delivers them with this really frustrated tone of voice. It sounds like he's rapping through clenched teeth a lot of the time. There's a real dry vocal mix on this track too, and a lot of other cuts on this record as well. With the way this was EQ'd and recorded, he could have laid this thing down in his kitchen for all I know. And I feel like going about it in this way, sort of forgoing a lot of the vocal acrobatics and the layers and the touch-ups that we might have heard on previous Kendrick records, makes for a more raw and wild and just kind of like, blunt experience and listen. Now, I think the main angle of these bars and this album at large is pretty straightforward. It is stated in a simple line, fuck a double entendre, I want y'all to feel this shit. And true to his word, GNX is maybe Kendrick's most what you see is what you get project yet, because he does not mince words as he portrays his current state. He sees a lot of jealousy being thrown his way in his position.
Maybe that was the problem. Maybe it was because it felt like such a surface level album. Like, and usually Kendrick doesn't deliver that. Like, usually he'll go the extra mile to, like I said, tie some kind of theme and overall message. And like Fantano had mentioned, some kind of like kind of skit or something that'll tie the entire record into a nice little bow. I feel like with this album, he didn't even try that like method at all.
with his success as he opens this song with the story of a defaced Kendrick Lamar mural that was put up in Compton that snowballs into being disliked by many of his contemporaries. Also, Lil Wayne having words about being unhappy with being passed over for the upcoming Super Bowl halftime show performance, which Kendrick Lamar is headlining. He shouts out Nas for congratulating him, also mentions Snoop Dogg for sharing that Tupac, Snoop Dogg, AI, Drake conceptualized, tailor-made diss track months back. At the end of the day, he portrays this gap in success and popularity between him and everyone else to the work that he puts in, and encourages those who want to get to where he's at to do the same kind of work that he's doing. Maybe you'll see the same sort of success. I think this sort of rolls into sentiments around him wanting to see the party die, calling back again to that Watch the Party Die single. Okay, fuck your hip-hop, I watched the party just die. Dudes cackling about blank, edit, blank there, not mentioning who they're cackling about, while all of y'all is on trial, which, yes, it's an edit.
Okay, so that was done on purpose. I was wondering when there was just that random amount of empty space on that line. I was wondering, like, was there something I missed? Was that, like, done on purpose? But it seems like it was.
On the line, but the intentions are still clear, because people could either be laughing at the downfall of Drake or figures like Diddy in the wake of accusations or stuff like that that have been thrown their way. But the issues on this front, Kendrick has been trying to highlight through his diss tracks, through his recent material. They don't boil down to just two guys. So with this modus operandi type track, Kendrick really tells us what he's about to tell us, and then the underlying implications of that play out with the rest of the album. As with the next track, you get Squabble Up, and the beauty of this synthy Bay Area smash is that honestly, you don't really need to spend a lot of time explaining it. Its appeal is instantaneous, it's incredibly catchy, it's also deeply West Coast aesthetically, with the synced up bass hits and the claps and all the open hi-hat hits, and some really awesome touches of electro era synths all over the track, as well as a freestyle music vocal snippet from Debbie Deb's 1983 cut, When I Hear Music. When I hear music, it make me dance. Meanwhile, Kendrick's flows
that was a fun little sample on that track,
and effortless, yet still eccentric and over the top. With these froggy inflections, he gives us lines like, woke up looking for the broccoli, hockey, keep a horn on me, that Kamasi, and really leans into like the weirder pockets of his voice when he's giving us refrains like, I feel good, get the fuck out of my face. It's absolutely insane, and calls back to recent collaborations, in my opinion, that he's had with his cousin, Baby Keem, where in his featured verses, he's tended to get a bit silly. And yes, here too, getting silly.
I don't mind him having fun either, though. You know, I just think the thing on Squabble Up was the right time and place. But now hearing it like a few times on his most recent record, sometimes it's not the right time or place, in my opinion. Especially, I think he was getting a little too silly at times on GNX. Squabble Up was a good track for him to have fun on. Some of the others, like, bro, cut that shit out.
But still seriously catchy and hard. Next, I'd like to sort of highlight the fact that this album just has such a great flow to it, track to track to track, because there's so much contrast across the album, and each song sort of seems like, in a way, a response to the one previous, as things next after Squabble Up smooth out with Luther, which is very much a sensual romantic jam with SZA, loaded with storybook strings, twinkly guitars, a head-nodding beat, not to mention some very strategically placed vocal drops pulled right out of a duet featuring the great Luther Vandross and Cheryl Lynn. If this world were mine.
He completely messed that up in the original. You notice he had to re-record that one. Don't think you slick, Anthony.
Kendrick and SZA's vocals just come together impeccably on this song. Now things get quite serious from here, less idyllic on Man at the Garden, where once again Kendrick is clearly being driven by that savior complex and also that desire to succeed. And while he does feel owed something for his efforts, he would also like to extend the benefits of that work to his mother, to his kids, to his loved ones, as you do when you are a family
That was
man.
probably one of the
The track
highest
comes
moments
to a
of
very
the
grand
album.
finish with a lot of faster, intense rapping that is layered up much in the same way that it was at the finish of Meet the Grams. It's also important to note that much of the beat and the chord progression on this track feels like a very conscious nod to Nas's One Mic, but it's clearly varied up enough to the point where, it's not a
Damn, and I was saying there was a lot of things about that track. There was a lot of influences on that track that I felt. Was it that track? Yeah, I think it was that track where I said sounded like production wise. No, I don't think it was that track. Never mind. I don't remember which track I said all those like influence I felt or inspired that track.
a cover or a redo or anything like that. It's really Kendrick making the case for himself in a lot of ways, showing us that he has the capacity to live up to the greatness that his forefathers, that the pioneers of the golden age of rap before him, set. And while I do think there is an argument to be made that this track could read as really quite pretentious on Kendrick's part, I don't know if there's anyone in his generation that is as effectively able to make the case he's making for himself on this track as well as he is. We head back into banger territory in the track list on Hey Now, which features another minimal beat. It's super bassy, lots of eerie rhythmic scraping in the background that somehow just works. Hey now, say now, I'm all about my yen. Big face Buddha, get my peace from within. So many snappy turns of phrase on this track. A slick and colorful delivery, which Kendrick turns the energy up on in the second verse. Also, the intergalactic synth bridge and the vocal harmonies on the bridge are incredible. It's amazing to hear this song kind of build from this very
I don't even
dark and
remember
grimy
this one.
place to something that is really quite intergalactic and harmonious. Beyond this, we move into a very strong centerpiece for the album, Reincarnated. Now, if I wanted to,
This was the
feel
one.
like I could
This was the one I was saying that sounded like a combination of Machiavelli, Eminem, and DMX. This was the one.
do an entire video on this single track alone, between the various references throughout the track, the narrative layers, the concept. Also, right out of the gate, the beat and flow on this song is a retooling of a classic Tupac and Outlaw's track.
Oh, I remember seeing that. I remember seeing that he sampled a Tupac track on this record. I didn't know it was that one. That makes more sense now.
Like with that Nas One Mic callback, Kendrick seems to just really be feeling himself, feeling the capacity to borrow from a great who he holds in such high regard as Tupac, and
Rest in peace,
take
Pac.
that track and just elevate it to a totally different place conceptually, as he gives us the life stories, in a sense, of these pioneering musical figures. One, a rhythm and blues artist, another, presumably Billie Holiday, given the specifics of when and where and the heroin addiction narrative. And in each of these stories, we see these figures being undone by their vices and by their greed, which their fame and their success allowed them to indulge in. Fast forward to present day, where we have Kendrick Lamar, who very much sees his talents and abilities and influence as something that is being kind of reincarnated.
You know what? That's not a bad. It was definitely one of my favorites. Definitely one of my favorites off the record. And at the moment, probably was my favorite when we heard it. But this track in particular is one I'm definitely looking forward to revisiting.
Within himself. Also,
the fact Fantano said that he can make a whole video about this, I kind of actually want him to. I hope he eventually does. If he does, I might react to that too.
Keep in mind, once again, we are doing a Tupac callback here, and Kendrick explores this dynamic within himself again and plays it out through this conversation with God, where he explains that he has
Okay, so it
good
was God.
intentions.
I thought it
everything
was
that
his
he
father.
does, but God calls him out on a bunch of faults that he doesn't even seem to be fully aware of or convinced of. Now, to be clear, Kendrick does portray himself on this song as somebody who, has his problems and has his shortcomings. And I think the greater point of the song is honestly that he feels like he is being called upon to essentially play out this same role in a way, where he's been given this gift or this golden opportunity, and we're still kind of sitting here and waiting to see whether or not it manifests in his self-destruction. And while Kendrick does end the song off on a strong bar, in so many ways this story is still being written. Now, after getting heady and conceptual, we go into TV Off, which honestly is a lot like Not Like Us, and that's an understatement. It kind of feels like Kendrick is giving.
If he would have just picked 4 or 5 songs from this album and made an EP, it would have sat a lot better for Kendrick's legacy. I think so too. Either like that, like an EP or mixtape. Honestly, if he would have labeled this as a mixtape, it would have probably not rubbed me as much in the wrong way. Or like you said, an EP with 4 to 5 songs and maybe the Drake disses, but a lot of this I felt like could have waited to be I guess I don't know. A lot of this was just a lot of these tracks, and especially this second half of the record, just did not hit for me.
Us a different message in the same Not Like Us font.
TV Off though sounded like Not Like Us. TV Off was nothing like Not Like Us, in my opinion.
It's a bizarro version of the song. It's still produced by DJ Mustard, but it's very much a banger. And the track has so many explosive moments.
It doesn't hit a banger status until the end. It doesn't hit banger status until Kendrick hits that verse. Mustard! Like, it doesn't hit banger status until then.
And quotables. All they ever wanted was a black Grand National. Fuck being rational. Give them what they asked for. More smooth, effortless, low-key charisma, and the beat switch on the back end that leads into the iconic Mustard!
That's going to,
which everybody has been copying.
That's going to be such a running, joke for the rest of the year. I'm already calling it.
All over the internet. The track is just...
SZA already did it on Kaisen that stream.
And proof that
either her or Lizzo
can, do another victory lap and also write a banger that isn't outright a diss. And it still catches on. People still repeat parts of it. People still freak out over it. Because if there was any sort of prevailing criticism of Not Like Us when it dropped and people saw the success of it, it's that, the song wouldn't be as popular. People wouldn't like it as much. People wouldn't be having as much fun with it if it weren't a diss track. Well, here's nearly the same song. But not a diss, and it still goes hard as fuck.
Let me just say this. That is such a bullshit opinion. Because the fact that it did numbers, and it was a diss track, says a lot, people genuinely, people who weren't even involved in, keeping up with the beat, enjoyed the song for what it was. It was just a fun song. It was just a very fun song, and a very catchy one at that. If you were not following the beef up to that point, more than likely, you probably enjoyed the song for what it is. Even if you don't like Kendrick Lamar, people just enjoyed the song. Fuck it being a diss. People just enjoyed it as a song. The people who try to discredit that track are just honestly full of shit and probably Drake dick riders. I'm gonna
After
say
this,
it.
we cool down with the song Dodger Blue, which is kind of like a very chill, melodic late night drive anthem with a smattering of different hi-hat tones and patterns, splashy delays, a fat synth bass line too that sounds amazing. There's some throwback R&B touches as well. It's just an absolute vibe. Really the vibiest track on the
No,
entire record. And honestly, I
not a
think the only
vibe.
thing that kind of makes it is that it could have been longer. It actually could have been like another minute or
No,
so longer.
no, that's the only track I truly like hate on that record. Like, especially on first listen, truly the only track I hate.
The song Peekaboo is also quiet and skeletal, but it's taking things in a much more grim direction. I love the hurried refrain that is kind of like a meta commentary in and of itself. It's like Kendrick is essentially coming on here to make a nonsense bullshit type track that doesn't really say or communicate much as a means of making fun of other rap music.
Oh my god. I was trying to finish this review in one sitting, but I have to use the restroom again. It's an energy drink, y'all.
It also doesn't communicate much. But still, even as Kendrick is saying nothing, it's still going to get stuck in your head. It's still going to make you laugh. He's still going to make a point or two like, why are you acting hard on IG Live? Isn't that kind of silly? Also, beam, bop, boom, 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 bop, bam. The type of shit I'm on you wouldn't understand. It sounds like something out of an old Lil B song or like Super Hot Fire sketch. And with LA rapper AZ Chike, Kendrick gets more trades in that are, again, full of chemistry and very catchy. Following this, we have another track that is kind of like another cheeky little allusion to the beef that just went down between Kendrick and Drake. That would be The Heart Part 6, which is this ongoing song and single series that, you know, famously so far hasn't usually typically featured in the main course of any Kendrick record up until this point, but he's putting it right toward the end on this album because if you remember in this series of tracks that were, disses and traded back and forth between Kendrick and Drake, Drake's final response to Kendrick was titled The Heart Part 6. Was obviously his own funny little way of being like, well, I'm going to use your own song series idea title thing against you, which, admirable move. The track ended up being kind of like trash, and it was clear that his heart was.
I never really heard. I didn't hear all Drake's disses, especially Taylor Made Freestyle and then The Hard Part 6. But I think the craziest part that I do remember about that track is the fact that he somehow messed up the freaking line about Mother I Sober. Like, how do you just do that? How do you I don't know. I don't know. There like at that point that was the beginning of Drake going out sad.
Wasn't really in the song, and it ended up not really doing much. But now Kendrick is very much taking the opportunity to do his own Heart Part 6, and he pretty much like sidesteps any drama beyond the title being his here, claiming it, reclaiming it, and essentially tells like a really beautiful slice of life kind of story about how he came up originally as a rapper in kind of that TDE ecosystem, his former label Top Dog Entertainment. And he's mentioning Punch and Ab Soul and Schoolboy Q and J-Rock.
Also Soundwave,
also producer Soundwave, whose fingerprints are all over this new record as well. And this was a really important tale to tell.
I didn't even know that.
Intimate details of this time, this era in Kendrick's life.
That's kind of tough, man. Soundwave was like one of the best contributions to albums like To Pimp a Butterfly. I just don't think actually, no. I will give Soundwave credit. The production throughout most of this new record was very solid. I will give Soundwave credit there.
That we haven't gotten.
It's not his fault Kendrick did what he did on his
point,
beats.
outside of like interviews here and there, and it's just significant, I think, to frame things in a way that gets people to understand that Kendrick, while he is often seen as that guy that one guy. His fame and his success isn't owed simply to him. It took a lot of other people influencing him and inspiring him and supporting him to get him to this point. The title track on the record is this wild ass posse cut featuring a bunch of LA guys over this instrumental that is just total madness. It sounds like getting wasted and using Fruity Loops for the first time. There's an absolutely nutty vocal mix on this track too. The bass is just overbearing and the groove is very odd.
The title track probably is the weakest track on this
the
record.
rapping and flows over it is so confident and so steady that it kind of makes up for it and brings some order to the chaos. I think it's my least favorite track on the album, but it is
there you go.
Ballsy and unhinged effort that despite it being a little
finally something I agree with.
Kind of admire it.
Fantano on this review,
the very grand and personal finisher for the record. Where
I said Glorilla, didn't I? I do apologize. I said Glorilla was the name of that track. It's Gloria, my dumbass.
In so many words, to put it very simply, Kendrick essentially writes about his writing process, his pen, as it were, and details his relationship with that as if it was a personal or a romantic connection with another person.
He personified his pen.
There are some issues there. There's highs and lows. There's maybe even a bit of a dependency. It may not be the healthiest of relationships, but it's gotten him to where he is today, and you know, it's always kind of been there for him and been there with him, no matter what he was going through. The track is just thoughtful and poetic beyond words. I know similar ones have been written in the past, but Kendrick definitely puts his own spin on this formula. I think it's a track that is beyond words to an extent. It really needs to be experienced for what it is. And yeah, no line hits harder on this track than when he says, "Ain't no bitch like my bitch, cause that bitch been my pen." And that's this record, man. I think it's great. I'm loving the hell out of it. It's impressive. It's hard hitting. It's catchy. It's direct and to the point. It is loaded with personality and wit and charisma, memorable beats and choruses and narrative.
He's not wrong about beats and choruses. He's not wrong about that. But aside from that, I don't even see how Fantano is really enjoying this record, to be 100% honest. I truly don't.
Concepts, passionate performances too. I really truly think
his performances seem very lackluster
and most cohesive work since TPAB, though the reasons I enjoy it are really entirely different in a lot of ways, and yet this new record over here is still incredible.
I want to go back to that. Hold on. What did he say? What did he say about
narrative concepts, passionate performances too. I really truly think this is Kendrick's best and most focused and most cohesive work since TPAB.
His best and most cohesive work since To Pimp a Butterfly. Oh, you're all good. You're all good, Cole. I'm gonna let him keep that shitty opinion to himself.
Though the reasons I enjoy it are really entirely different in a lot of ways. And yet this new record over here is still incredible on its own merits. It's not like, Kendrick is an artist who's running out of gas, running out of steam, trying to recreate the same magic of a past success on this album. He's pushing forward. He's trying new things. He's experimenting and making waves in the process. I'm going to end this review here before I run out of goddamn breath, and I'm going to say I'm feeling a light 9 on it. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it?
Light 9. A light 9 is criminal for that album. Are we just haters? Are we just haters, Herman? Are we just haters? We might just be haters. I don't know. Light 9. I have never disagreed. We are realistic. Listen, I don't see eye to eye with Fantano on every review. He's honestly, he's kind of harsh on some of my favorites. Aside from Kendrick. This time, I feel like I'm the hardest on Kendrick on this one. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like he completely overrated this album. Honestly, and I think this album won't age nearly as well as Kendrick's previous records. I just don't. I feel like he was too experimental on this one, and it just didn't work for me. Like, if this was a Baby Keem album, I think honestly Baby Keem could have made it a lot better. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just need to see more people's reactions or reviews to this off stream. Light 9? That's crazy. I don't know. I surely don't know.
I'm trying to be perfect, that shit is exhausting. An infinite force that nitpicking niggas get lost in.